Forrest, we good? Call to order the regular meeting for Tonganoxie USD 464 for Monday, June 9th, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Action item, item 1.4 is a budget hearing to give an opportunity for public comment on our republished budget. There will be an action item later. We don't have any public here, but should I give it just a minute, Audra? Let's make sure no one comes. All right, so we're going to give it 1 minute, and then we'll get going. All right, if there's no public comment, we will adjourn the budget hearing portion of the meeting and move into action or to item 1.5. Mr. Loomis.
Hey, Rebecca, don't leave. Yes, I need you. Sorry. I know you want to get. I'm going to have you address the liability, not the liability, but the work comp.
All right, got some fairly substantial information tonight that hopefully you've had a little bit of chance to look over. I want to kick off with the action item you have tonight. Excuse me, regarding warranty on the new middle school rooftop units that are going on as we speak. And I mentioned this in the little narrative we sent you guys. Basically, through our conversations with Trane, kind of driving down that point of what does a guarantee cost? How do we better serve our buildings and be just more proactive in response to heating and cooling failures? And so in that conversation, they said, "Oh yeah." We're talking about a lot of elementary school stuff, but we just kind of asked them, hey, what does that look like for the middle school and that project we're doing with you right now? How for me personally, it's now I can see what it actually is for an actual project that we are completing right now. And so here's what they are offering to us. This is via Trane, and like I said, we are putting 14 new rooftop units on at the middle school as we speak. Most of them, the new ones, are up there now. We're in the connection process. So here, obviously, this is kind of feels like it's railroading down your throat a little bit, and I apologize for that. I know that's not normally how we want to try to operate, but we are in a time crunch with this because basically the minute they drop those units on top of the roof, our warranty begins. So we have a 1-year parts and labor warranty on anything we buy that's brand new. So right now, those units are a 1-year parts and labor warranty. We shouldn't have any issues for a 365-day period. Trane has kind of graciously offered to say, okay, hey, if we can get this done Monday night, we will put this warranty to it. So what this warranty is basically 5-year parts and labor. So for the first 5 years of this life cycle, we will continue to have a service agreement, but the service agreement will really look like just your standard issue check and grease belts, fan coils, things of that nature, pretty basic. So there will still be a service agreement in the 26-27 year. We won't have one right now because it's covered in this. So year parts 2 to 5 is parts and labor. So basically for 5 years, we will not have or we shouldn't have a train invoice for repair on the middle school for anything. This is going to cover all parts, all repairs, all labor, everything. And then what you'll see from years 6 through 10 is compressors and heat exchangers. So now the little stuff we are on the hook for from a parts and labor standpoint, but I think we've all beat the compressor thing to death here at the elementary school, and we kind of understand that's a large ticket item. And so this will cover us compressors through 10 years. So basically, with approval of this, for 10 years, the compressor goes out. We're not gonna pay for that from a parts standpoint. It's kind of one of those things. I think I mentioned this, and I just want to be ultra transparent. There's a chance we come out ahead on this deal, and there's a chance train comes out ahead on this deal. I can't sit here and tell you 100%. I mean, in a perfect world, the units would run like they're supposed to, and no part will ever fail, and we're going to pay for this warranty we never use. It's a little bit like insurance, I guess, in that regard. The other side of this is, one of those units could have, I don't know, been bounced on the ship wrong or something like that on its way over here, and we are doing some major work, and we come out way ahead on this deal. Obviously, their number is probably driven off of trying to meet that in the middle somewhere. Reasonable for us as a customer, but also reasonable for them as a business entity. So this is on your agenda for approval tonight. For me personally, I think if you take that number and divide it by 10, that's what we're paying yearly for a pretty substantial guarantee that we're not going to have any issues here. So what it really looks like is if something goes out in year 3, we lose a compressor. This kind of goes back to the conversation we had that the train is now on the hook for it. They're going to get somebody out here. We're going to get the part replaced. We're going to have minimal downtime and obviously no cost to us other than basically what you're paying up front right now. So to me, I feel like it's a good thing for the district. I think it offers us some guarantee, and it offers us some peace of mind over 10 years with these things as we kind of move into this thing. And the next part of what we'll be talking about tonight will be elementary HVAC. So it just kind of feels like a good test of this process, although we're going to be there with the elementary sooner than later anyway. But again, you're taking that total number that's going to cover us for 10 years. We're going to pay it up front, and then that's going to be the cost. We will still have a service agreement with some sort of maintenance provider, but we won't be paying for parts. We won't be paying for labor on these repairs for 5 years. So questions on this warranty? I want to get this one done and out of the way.
You mentioned minimal downtime. In the warranty, is there language that states like that things will be repaired within a certain amount of time?
So the only thing on that is we are at the mercy of, supply chain. Now that's been considerably better, and what they will tell you and what I'll tell you is with the newer units, we're not finding a part from the 2014 VRF thing that, I think that's where the downtime thing hits a little harder, because with the elementary stuff, it has been, sometimes it's a little harder to find parts because, again, we know this, nobody supports that system anymore. This is their new technology stuff, so it's pretty straightforward as far as getting the pieces for it.
So it does have that language in there? Or?
This is the language. You're pretty much looking at it. I mean, this is what it is. I don't think there's any way for them to guarantee that. No, I wish there was. I see what you're saying, but I think if you put it on them, they would say, certainly as soon as you call, we'll order it, but train's not going to stamp, what UPS is doing or something like that. So, I don't think there's not a guarantee in that, but I would make a pretty educated assumption that with the newer units and this being newer technology, that the part availability is considerably better than what we deal with sometimes with some of our older stuff.
So parts availability notwithstanding, though, you are pretty confident. I mean, Train is responsive when we call them today.
Yeah.
We don't have any reason to believe they wouldn't be responsive here again
Correct.
Pending
There's-
parts availability.
Yeah, they are very good about communicating, hey, this is back ordered. We've come out of that so much. I think it's just kind of a weird, 2021, it was, hey, this is back ordered 8 months for something that was really silly. I haven't seen that in the last 2 years, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't have any reason to believe that there's anything in these units that we cannot readily get within reason, and I'd say with that being a week or two.
Okay. Other questions on the extended warranties? And I think you said it right. You're flipping a coin in terms of if we win or if they win. It's a matter of predictability.
Correct.
Okay,
All right, moving on.
moving on.
So, like I said, I got a lot to tackle tonight, and I'm going to try to keep it as straightforward as we can. Lauren and I think we had a great meeting with Train not too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago, as they're kind of dive into the elementary school. And so what I kind of want to show you guys tonight is some of that information. It's not my intent to dive into this tonight with everybody and be here for 3 hours, but I do think we have kind of narrowed it down to a couple of options. We've got some rough numbers and some things we can look at from their point of view of what we want to do moving forward. Lauren and I have kind of conveyed to them our intent to phase this thing and not do a one fell swoop project, be able to look at what is serving us best, if we're still getting any value out of the current system. I think that I kind of go back to that pretty frequently with them is, we're still 11 years old on the system we purchased in 2013, 2014. And I think from my standpoint, there is still a little bit of an appetite to make sure we are maximizing those dollars spent for that system the best we can without torpedoing the whole thing and obviously spending more money to replace it than it's worth. So that being said, the two options that they have come to us with that we feel good with is obviously a split system, which is what you're looking at right here. And it's basically just a 1-to-1. You have a rooftop unit with this little thing right up here. It could be on the roof, it could be on the side of the building, it could be on the ground. I think we conveyed our intent to put those on the roof, and it would connect straight to a cassette to the center of the room, very similar to what's there now. It would serve that room and that room only. Thermostat on the wall, go up and down. Train let us know that this is a little more substantial in cost than originally we thought, based on the ability for these to be a really high-grade commercial product as opposed to probably like what we have on a lot of our buildings right now, and that being in reference to their ability to heat down to like -10 degrees outside. A lot of splits, they say, are not going to be able to operate. So they bid this at a very quality, ability to at -10 degrees outside, that these things will still work. It's roughly 108 to 110 to 15, I'd say. I think there's probably going to be a couple places we're going to look at where we'd add them, but that's kind of one main option. And here, zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see estimated total cost. So if we scroll over to the end, that's kind of their estimation, that $5.48 million on total cost of this project. Phasing it, going to, phase 1 would be the end of the building, phase 2 the middle, and phase 3 the end. And that cost, again, estimated, representing inflation over time. So that was one option. The other one is a air handler, and basically, as to not dive too far into this, it's very similar. It's going to be a 1-to-1 layout, classroom to units. Going to look more like a residential unit that you have outside your house right now. Probably a little bit more substantial fix to this problem. I think Train likes this one better, but it's a pretty similar. I think when they introduced it to Lauren and I think we both kind of perked up and thought this could also be an option. But basically installing indoor air handlers and heat pumps outside. And I'm not going to go into the logistics of all that because it would kind of be pointless, because ultimately this is kind of what we're hunting at. So we are still in this process. I don't mean to drag it out by any means, but I think we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And so now we've got some budgetary numbers for Lauren and I to look at and see how we can make this work, see what we think the best option is for us going forward. And then obviously knowing that we still got the repiping that was completed not too long ago, to see how that plays out over the next year. There's just still a lot of moving parts to this in my mind, but I do think, these numbers are something we can earmark a little bit to continue this planning process. So I just kind of want to share that with this group tonight and just kind of know what we're getting ourselves into as we proceed with some of these other projects and things like that. And I know Lauren and I obviously have a lot more work to do on this, but our intent is to at some point pull the trigger on one of these options and, again, potentially look at phasing that on one stack of the entire building. So when we do this, it would be, we have kindergarten, third grade, first grade, fourth grade, and then second grade, fifth grade. So it'd probably start with that second grade, fifth grade last stack, and we do the entire thing. Again, at that estimated cost construction of $1.5 to $1.8 million to complete that. This is just Trane. This is just kind of our dive with them. I think there's certainly opportunities to approach other manufacturers. The only nice part about using Trane's numbers just in general are it is a turnkey project with them. They keep everything in-house. So there is, those numbers are covering electrical, installation, equipment. Basically, that's what the project's going to cost with them. Now, there's probably avenues for us to bid that out and do some things to not use them if we chose that route. But again, when we're talking budgetary, I think this is a pretty good swing at it. So.
One of the things we talked about the other day was if we get to a situation where we think the piping worked and we think phase one's working, there's really nothing that says that all 6 of those pods have to be on the exact same thing, correct?
Correct.
So if we went down phase one and decided it's not quite what we thought, or the piping gives us new confidence in VRF, there's nothing that says that
phase 3's got to be done, or phase 2
couldn't have.
Yeah, and I think again, there's the thing to bear in mind is that we are in year 11 with this current system. 15 to 20 is a pretty good life cycle for anything we're putting in. I think the newer stuff, I would hope, is a 20 to 25, but just keeping that number in mind as far as where we're at with the current system probably matters still to a certain degree. And then again, so if the repiping serves us well, I think we are doing everything we can out there right now.
Well, again, I think my point on the repiping wasn't to say we try to nurse that along. It was to say maybe we have different confidence in
sure,
Gen 3 RFs versus
and I mean there was a lot of offering from Trane on potential options that went from these prices to over the roof, and then there's boilers and chillers, and there's a lot of things that we kind of had them back off a little bit because I just think it's not. I think we have really got to narrow our focus a little bit, and this is going to help us do it. Just continue to move forward. If we open up a whole other can of worms, there's a million ways you can go with this, and I think we got to make a decision at some point. So I think probably in the next 2 months that we'll continue to try to, maybe by the first of the school year, have a plan to say, okay, hey, this is where we're going with this, and using this information to do that. But obviously just trying to get this in front of you the best we can tonight. So.
Do we have enough of a spec from Trane that we can leverage that spec on an RFP with other vendors?
We've got enough information that we probably currently have. And again, this is probably the next step, is to take a swing at it with somebody else and just say, hey, what's this look like for you? Because again, I trust the numbers. I trust Trane. I don't have any reason not to, but I don't, the possibility definitely exists that somebody come back and go, oh yeah, we can do that for $900,000. Now, then there's a whole other conversation to have. Like I said, these numbers just do well with that turnkey price versus somebody else trying to bid it out, using electrical, using installation, using manufacturer, et cetera, et cetera.
With each one of those phases,
Yep.
do we have, I know some of them were, we got a 5-year
Yeah.
warranty
Yeah.
with the replacement. Is that sprinkled across all those phases, or?
Yeah, it is. If you probably looked at what we just got through over the last 2 months doing, yeah, so phase one, this phase does have some 5-year warranty to a lot of that. And then there's a couple here and there. I don't know if it's substantial enough. It basically turns a $10,000 project to a $5,000 project, I guess, is in layman's terms.
Okay.
So the savings are definitely worth something, but
But it's not all of it.
it's not all of it. And I think for us, it's if it keeps breaking, like so at some point that 5-year warranty is
Absolutely.
just like, okay, great. We're still, we want a result again. I think is the direction I've received is. So if we keep having to replace a compressor and the price is half the price, yeah, that's great, but that's still not delivering a 72-degree room to our teachers and kids. So I think that's where our plan is trying to head.
Okay.
All right. That was all the fun stuff. No. Last thing we got is moving on to our West Campus parking and middle school multi-purpose facility that we have talked about and identified through the bond contingency hierarchy, or however you want to say it. So basically, I kind of want to explain where we're at with this. So we met with DLR a couple weeks ago in a kind of a pre-programming meeting, and what we contracted with DLR through this first phase was basically them coming in to program this space with us, offering us a couple of options for us to kind of pick through. And that's what I have here for you tonight. The next phase of this for us is going to be DLR coming back to meet with us to take a couple of our options and begin the process of, okay, hey, this is what you want, tweaking it a little bit, and then being able to apply a budgetary number to that project for us. So that meeting's probably going to happen into this week, early next. And so then another probably week or two on their end to do it. So probably another month of the programming and planning, and then coming back with a budgetary number. And at which point then I think we would be ready to move to approve DLR, to produce some CDs for us and put an RFP together that we could send out to have this work actually done. These are some very obviously basic renderings from them. The last meeting we have at the end of this week, early next week, when we finalize this, they will clean this up a little bit, put some color to it, and give you something to actually look at. But what we included in the board docs is basically kind of what they gave us based on the programming meeting we had. How many buses do you need? How many cars do you need? What are you actually trying to get out of this sort of thing? Where's your track going, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of want to just cover that with you guys tonight. Here is what one option on bus parking, as you can see. So if you're trying to orient yourself, this is the West Campus right here. So this back square is the West Campus gym. The back doors you would go into are right there. The parking lot obviously here, and this is kind of where our buses would currently pull into that gravel parking lot. So that is kind of where we're at. This was the space they designed to really utilize the current space we have. This is the greenhouse right here, so you're kind of going back behind there, cleaning that area up, and basically just providing semi-confirmed turning radius that a bus can come in here, make this turn, go out, and then you can see the numbers for bus parking. This would include making a connecting road from this parking lot to this large parking lot I'll get to in a second, behind the building. And then obviously the parking lot out here is that just need for more parking, whether it be rec commission, and then obviously it's a lot, but with the plan of this being phase one of potentially putting a baseball, softball complex on the curve at some point, and then this would be event parking for that as well. In this current state, we would park vans there, rec commission could move over there, district office staff, et cetera. We could just alleviate some of our huge parking issues we have right now with our staff lot in the front. We looked at this one I don't like as much. 23 large buses, 9 small, that is that's actually 27 large buses. That is really pushing the limit on our current fleet right now. And I think one thing that's very important is that we, as we spend and as we plan, we account for growth and the ability to move forward. So this one offers the same parking lot over here, but kind of takes us across that ravine over here. Picture the old soccer concession stand that's back there. This is that flat area there. They have confirmed that all this still holds the potential for ball fields out here at some point, so this does not, overlay that space. But giving us spots for 34 large buses, 13 small buses, allows for some growth. This will include block heaters so we can plug our buses in, lighting, cameras. This is a sliding gate up here for our buses to go in and out of, a fenced area for security. And then one thing we did talk about on this red arrow here is the potential maybe someday for a road to go on the south side of our property there and connect to 2440 where that opening is, maybe a right turn out sort of thing. That's another conversation for another day, but that's kind of what you're seeing down there with that. So this is kind of what we honed in on that we want to move forward with. It kind of takes a whole different footprint out than I think we originally thought, but it checks every box that we needed to check, gives us a big space for our buses. And, we've talked about a couple of options to move the fence, to allow us to use these other spaces down here for a number of different things. But this is kind of, obviously the parking lot up here to the west of the West Campus is pretty straightforward. And then this one down here would be how we plan to proceed moving forward with the bus parking lot. So when we get that budgetary number, I think that's going to obviously help us a lot more, but this is kind of where we're honing in on. So questions on any of that as far as parking goes?
Up at the parking, the top, there's that kind of wasted space. It's like a triangular shape.
Up here somewhere?
To the
left of it.
west of that parking lot,
Yeah.
the little
Oh,
triangle.
this here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, shortening it but extending it into that would make
Sure.
more
What
growth
he-
sense.
What he mentioned was that could be developed in another phase,
And
Adding more parking there.
possibly. I mean, if let's say that a baseball, softball did go in, you might want more parking in some of those spots. So
And there's still, and I think again, some of that programming is going to be like we talked about. Obviously, these spots that you see down here on the south side, there's got to be an entrance to this facility at some point in time. So, I mean, like, this is just a very generic, okay, hey, here's the footprint based on square footage that holds 230 cars. I think, I absolutely think we could.
That's why I'm wondering if those spots right there where your cursor's at, like, that seems a little wasted if you could extend it out the other direction
Sure.
and not have those.
Yeah, and I think we can play with that a little bit for
yeah.
sure. Like I said, I think this is just in that process. This is kind of okay. Hey, we need roughly 200 to 250 spots up here. Okay, here, bam, here's the footprints that it's in, and then if you had ball fields out here at some point, understanding that they still fit in this, but if you put a complex in at some point, you would how this area right here would change considerably, and yeah, I think we would probably try to find something to do with this based on another programming conversation for sure.
So for the action item tonight, it's the approval to send out an RFP.
Mm.
Would we intend to, and I know you're having more design conversations with DLR.
Yep.
Would we intend to send out an RFP for both options and see where they come in, or are we going to try and narrow it down to?
I think we're going to try to narrow it down. I think there's probably a budgetary number we could get for these. I don't think this works. I don't think there's any room for growth. I don't kind of have a love-hate with this thing right here. I think it's neat for the buses to come in and be able to go out that side, but not super necessary by any means, and that's going to come at a cost. This is less dirt work, so the thing we're playing with here is this swale that goes right through here. There's a drainage, obviously, that you can see it out there. He did mention that this option is considerably less dirt work in that regard. It is a little bit bigger space, but I think size is important here because, again, I don't see in this one how you grow this without popping across there and building that. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to build something that just meets our need right now, when I think the hope and the want is to eventually grow and have a bigger fleet and just have more options.
So concept one is all on the north side of that ravine.
No, it's not. It plays into the ravine a little bit right here, and I think that's where they mentioned the cost for concept two being a little bit. I shouldn't say cost. The work on that ravine. So on this one here, I mean, you're gonna have to fill that thing in. You're gonna have to put a tube in, and that's pretty. When the whole thing's said and done, if there's ever a baseball field out there, I think you have to do that eventually anyway. But this is a pretty substantial work on that ravine to just take this whole area to go through, versus concept two, where you're really just crossing, that bridge you drive on to go to the old soccer field right now, obviously a little bit more sturdy.
So Mitch, my question is kind of building on Justin. So we meet with Dave Conatag,
Yep.
and we over the next week to 2 weeks, he comes back with more detailed renderings.
Yep, more detailed
So at that
renderings.
time, are we going to be looking at a piece? So do we even need to put out a RFP right now?
I don't think we need an action item tonight.
Yeah.
I think July. I think we do. I think I will.
Put
And
it
here's
field.
why. I don't have any blind swing at what this is going to cost. And there's part of me that hopes we budgeted correctly for it. And I'm just, in brutal honesty, there's a gut part of me that thinks this is going to be a heck of a lot more expensive than we think it's going to be. So I would be hesitant to ask you guys to do anything tonight, other than, because again, that number may change our appetite to put out an RFP or maybe do the whole thing. So I think we have established our desire to do this, but I think if we wait till July, then we can get the RFP out. And it's not a super complicated project, so I think a July RFP, I mean, it's a pretty uninvasive area for us when we get back to school. I know asphalt guys are gonna, have mentioned that Thanksgiving's kind of their cutoff. So to me, I think the long term looks like if we like what we have, we like the price, the RFP goes out, we get good numbers, and we think we can get it in the fall, I think that's great. If we have to wait till the spring to start construction on this, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think we just have to continue to keep moving forward with these projects, but there's not, this is something if we can get this done before winter, that would be amazing for our transportation people. I think Jill would be doing backflips if we can plug our buses in this winter. So I think that would be certainly the priority, but also not in the interest of doing something, without going through the proper channels to make sure we're getting exactly what we want and what we're paying for. So but July would be probably when we need that item to just get the approval for the RFP, and then come back with some hard numbers in August and say, hey, this is where we're at. And
I think that certainly this is a priority for the district. I think
Absolutely.
we've kind of agreed to establish that. I do think it's, the old track and football field, there are some community members that are using that for youth football and stuff.
Yep.
And I think this is a priority for the district, but it is something to just remember that there is an impact to the community there. So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so moving on from that.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
so we will table
Table.
that action item when we get to it.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's kind of what the first swing, and again, if you guys remember, we approved a contract with DLR to do all this. So the other side of that was the multi-purpose field, and I wonder if I can zoom out of that a little bit. For orientation purposes, I think everybody knows where we're at. There's the water tower. Here's the elementary playground right here, so it's kind of up on that hill. This is kind of the same thing. We went through this programming piece, and so with this one, I don't want you to get too bogged down on the ins and outs of it, because all these other things we kind of see here, I think the desire right now for me personally and Lauren is we really want to get the multi-purpose field in. I'd really like to see a middle school track get put in. How we do the rest of this is kind of we want to make sure we have the plan to do it, but not necessarily need to do it. So two concepts here, and I kind of just flip back and forth. It really is just how we orient the field. into that space. So you kind of see it's just a little wiggle of, you know, how it runs north to south and east to west. Cannot get a true north-south out of this probably. But again, this is just looking at those options. The field event things, I think there's a pretty strong desire to make sure we have those, just because, again, we're trying to build a facility our middle school can practice on that isn't a parking lot. But again, I think there is some flexibility for how we do those things. I think for tonight, as we move forward with this, it is really just looking at, hey, here's the multi-purpose surface, here's an 8-lane track, bleachers, all that stuff is in there, so we are cognizant of how we can move this facility and use it going forward, but I don't think that plays into our initial phase of building this. I think the initial drive is to make sure we get a multi-purpose field and a track. Again, if budgetarily speaking, it all comes back in and we can, you know, do that with our planning. So I don't know if we necessarily settled on what we love best. There's quite a bit of earth moved here. If you can picture from this road right here, there is a little hill that walks down to this space. I think the intention of their design is to cut into that hill and take some dirt out of this half of that plateau and use it to fill back over here. I will tell you, in this design, like, that's a pretty good hill right here, so that's a lot of fill. I mean, that hill drops off, and so there's going to be some fill and some things like that. This design doesn't quite get into that berm quite as bad, and I think this is the one that our team liked the best for future planning as well. But obviously, you know,
Are we planning on using this for actual competitive events at some
so
point?
so that's where a lot of this came into. As we got into that programming, we want to be able to do that, yes. And so I think where we are at with it is trying to do that with make sure we have all the necessities to host an event, but we don't need another varsity football field is the best way to put it. So that might be concrete pad but no bleachers, and, you know, I'm sure you've all been to a middle school event. There's, you know, bring your lawn chairs, or making sure we have a scoreboard, or making sure we have, you know, we could probably host a track duel or a try out here because we do have the field events. But the intent is not to, for me personally, I think if the middle school hosted league track, it would be a Beatty field. This would not be that. But I think if we needed to have a middle school football game here, we want to be able to do that. If we wanted to have a middle school dual track meet out here, we want to be able to do that. So,
Well, and looking at the one that you have up there, so I always think about people that are going to come to a competitive event that be like grandparents. That feels like a distance for a grandparent to come and help support our teams if they're going to walk all the way around to those home bleachers.
yeah.
They're on the other side. So I guess I see the other one as more visitor friendly, or these are
Sure.
our taxpayers that are paying the money, and I'd like them to be able to go watch it if they would like to, and without a lot of inconvenience of
Yeah.
having to walk a far distance. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
why I see that one maybe.
Stephanie, we also talked about is if East Street does get developed, there could be some parking down behind the elementary
That's true.
playground, and so that would be our better access, probably in some ways. And whatever, we don't know what's going to happen with 14th Street. You know, that's just another piece of the puzzle.
I do think in our conversations we have, I don't know if there would ever be a visitor bleachers here, to be honest with you. I think it would just be a home bleacher, and again, I think in the future, you know, I'm talking way down the road, new middle school, and all of a sudden this is you know, we want to be able to put everything in we ever need without spending to put everything in we ever need right now, but making sure the infrastructure, and that's kind of where we got DLR involved in this, was we certainly could just measure out where it fits and somebody could come out there and drop this in for us, but we want to make sure that we are cognizant of how we use this going forward, whether that be restrooms, whether that be plumbing, sewage and all that stuff too, lights, but, you know, just things down the road.
I don't know if we would ever add on to the elementary school, but
Right.
if we had to, is there room the way that's set up to to add on to that building if we needed to, if there was.
Well, we have some other ideas, possibly doing some shifting around between the middle school and the elementary school, and then possibly way down the road, looking at maybe a different middle school on our
So
property.
having like an intermediate at.
Yep.
Mhm. And a lot of that's on our own property, so.
I think the bigger desire would be long-term to let the air out of the elementary school a little bit versus adding to it, especially
And then
parking.
instead of building a new early childhood center, is use that facility through shifting of
Okay.
our own resources.
I just don't want us to lock ourselves into something that.
Yeah,
we-
Yeah.
no, it makes sense.
We've had those conversations, certainly.
So, and I have a hard time envisioning all that grade out there and
Yeah.
topography, but it feels like that everything in either drawing, everything southwest of that track is kind of wasted. I mean, I don't know what we would ever do with that. Is there any way that you get it more true north and south and scoot it over on that west? I mean, you're further away from the buildings, you're further away from
Yeah.
parking. It just feels like there's not enough space to ever do anything there, but
I kind of felt like they were trying to use as much of that flat area as they possibly could.
just to avoid the.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
The research into this has certainly been around grading, and minimizing that or being able to rob Peter to pay Paul sort of thing on the north end versus the south end. And like I said, you can see kind of on this map, these lines that are right here. I mean, that's that hill that you'd look at if you were down at the elementary looking up. So the more you can stay out of that, probably the better. But again, it's cost value to what you're actually trying to accomplish. So I think just for the purposes of kind of trying to wrap this a little bit, this is more of our priority right now. I think we've established that bus parking is probably where we need to be. But again, what we are contracted with DLR right now to do is to provide us with some budgetary numbers and things like that. And wherever this lands on that, I think is another conversation, because the next piece is, okay, how are we going to pay for it? And we got to be able to stand up here and explain that as well. So I think this is more the appetite we have right now for that, but I don't know if there's necessarily anything wrong with this. I think, when we met and kind of went over this with our team, it was like, I think anybody was digging their heels in on one versus the other, whereas on the parking lots, I'm pretty passionate about the one versus the other. So I think we can still play with this a little bit. I guess I don't feel I would love to have this, and I would love to be able to put it in before next spring, but obviously there's a lot of future planning that goes into this as well. So
I think the one thing I might add too, and is kind of back to Stephanie's comment earlier about accessibility, is maybe thinking about a small, like a accessible parking lot that would be close for people with
so
mobility
I
concerns.
do think, to answer that question, I do think if we were going to hold events there, we would be on the hook for some sort of handicap accessible parking closer. I just, there's nothing. This sidewalk right here is obviously a pretty flat ground, but I think it would just be in our best interest to cut into here somehow. We brought that up in the meeting to offer,
It looks like there's space.
5 to 6 spaces. Even to your point, a drop off, even very similar to the parking lot, the one we have right outside the ticket booth here, maybe you could make a loop in. So, but again, I think we have another programming piece of this where we could just say, hey, we need to see what that looks like too. So
It seems, to me, it feels like that both of those drawings are similar enough that, if one of them took 200,000 more dirt work than the other one.
correct. Right.
One's as good as the other. I mean, to me, they're both pretty similar.
And I think that's probably in this regard to what you said about the parking lots. Like, I think we could probably go to them and say, hey, what's that number look like? Like, what's this one cost versus that one? Or we say, if it's $1 million in dirt work, yeah, it might be worth it. But if it's $50,000 in dirt work, it may not, on a multi-million-dollar project, it may not be that. And again, like I said, I think there's still a conversation we need to have with them about restrooms and things like that as well. So, but again, just putting it out there, I think we can have those conversations in our follow-up and try to answer a lot more questions on this one, whereas I think here we feel pretty good about a couple tweaks we need to make and starting to be able to continue to move forward with that. So,
So next step on the track though is continue to work, really both projects.
Yep.
Is to continue to work with DLR on a final proposed design, budgetary numbers, and at some point, maybe next month, maybe not, we would approve to submit an
So
RFP.
yeah, there's going to be the approval next month. If I was guessing, will be another contract with DLR for CDs, actual drawings, and things like that nature. I mean, this is a design phase right now, and so we're getting back into what we did at the high school, but them actually putting a drawing that they can send out an RFP on. So there will be there will be another approval. I don't have any clue of what that's going to cost, but there'll be another approval for a contract extension with DLR on this project. That will cover the RFP and everything else.
Okay.
So that would be my plan. Yes.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Last thing I got, nothing too crazy. District Admin Center gym is starting on June 20th. Track is going to start late June. Everything is going well, even through all the rain at the middle school with rooftops and roof replacement. So all those projects that we currently have, I don't have anything to report on, which is a great thing. But like I said, we got those other things will be starting up. So we'll begin the process of sending out some communication on the track here once I get a firm date from them. But those things are moving and hopefully start checking some stuff off the list. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there an approval or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. No public comments. Mr. Feldkamp.
Okay, so the reason I had Rebecca stay is because of the last email that we just sent out. So we want to address that for everybody, because if you want to pull that up on your phone, that way you kind of have it. So let me go through some pretty important things that we've been working on for the last month. We have worked diligently on our health insurance renewal with CBIZ. I think we've had at least 3 conversations, or either them meeting with us or calling them. And so there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, and we feel very good. The CBIZ has worked very hard for us to get us to the point. At one time, we were thinking that we were looking at a 12.5 to 12.7% increase, and that has, it looks like that may drop considerably moving into next year. And some of that is, I would just call competition, with different vendors bidding for our service, for our business, and then there's counter offers, and we've gone back and forth. So I think the 2 finalists right now are probably Cigna and Blue Cross, and so we're going to have a insurance meeting Thursday at 10, and we're going to run it all past them, and so they'll have their say on what that might look like, and which, we're happy with Blue Cross, but we also know that there's other vendors that are bidding for our business, so that's a good thing. So feel a lot better about it than I did 4 weeks ago, for sure. And then property and casualty just got approved, and Rebecca, that's kind of, you worked on that, and you have not too much to report on that, except that actually decreased just a little bit.
Property and casualty, yes.
Yes. Now, the one that I'd like, she just sent the email out. I don't know if you had a chance to read. We didn't get that until 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Yeah, about 45.
So why don't you go ahead and address the board on that piece? That's what I kept you for. Sorry.
I guess the short story is our current workers' compensation insurance carrier it's with RAS. They decided not to renew this year, so we had to go out to bid. CBIZ worked with us on that as well. We had quotes from KSB Pool, as well as MEM. MEM actually came out and interviewed us, and we had a nice visit with them. That agent seemed very competent. She was great to work with. That is who CBIZ is recommending we go with. That total premium for the year would be $125,539. Just for reference, the KASB pool would be $138,430.
Do you have the increase, what that would be? It was like a two.
This year we paid $85,000 and some
Yeah,
change.
okay.
So it's MEM is 52% and KASB
Yeah.
is around 58 or 59, if memory serves correctly. Either way, it's a substantial increase. We expected that. We've had a couple of years with some big claims, random fluky things that just happened. The agent with MEM, we talked about that pretty extensively. She agreed. They're just fluke incidences that happen sometimes. People hurt themselves. She didn't seem overly concerned with that. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, we got that email late this afternoon. So
And the reason we're bringing that up is at tomorrow's board retreat, we're probably going to put this on the agenda for approval, along with, what was the other one I just mentioned?
Reappointing a,
Oh, yeah, Josie.
yeah.
Okay, and we have the rec commission information that we just got today too. The reason we're doing that is because if we don't do it before June 30th, we won't have liability coverage.
yeah, our
As of
current
June
coverage
30th.
expires June 30th.
So-
We don't want to have a lapse.
So
That's not a good plan.
that's
for
why we
any
can't wait
business.
till July.
I know they're fluky things, but do we have any kind of safety training that we do with anybody? I mean, obviously, nobody wants to pay insurance premiums, but more importantly, we don't want to see people get hurt. Are there any kind of safety things that we ought to put in place to avoid?
So we do have some annual trainings that everyone is required to do. That is one thing that the rep with MEM talked about. She wanted us to actually work on some policy updates. That was one of her recommendations. And to make some more specific policies and procedures and trainings for our maintenance crews versus our custodians versus teachers. They're going to have totally different trainings than those other groups. So that's one thing she wanted to work on.
Good.
Okay,
So thank you for staying and
thanks for staying.
You're welcome.
ruining your night.
Have a good night.
All right, so moving on, just a real quick on staffing. We're having a really good year at filling a lot of our staffing. We're fortunate, in that regard. And, location is important, but I also think that we're building a good reputation here. So we have all the, well, there might be one science position that we're still working on at the high school, but all other positions are full. SPED positions are full, and we always will be hiring paraprofessionals. So those are not full. So we continue to work on that. But there was a lot of interviews that went on in the last month at all three building levels. So we're working hard on that. Retreat is tomorrow. If you want to show up anytime a little before 11:30, we would really like, because they'll have lunch ready for us. And then we'd like to get started around 12:15 with, we have a couple things to knock off, with the agenda, and then go right into our first part of the retreat. Then we'll take a break, come back with budget. As we know, we have Greenbush and actually I have Piper Sandler on a Zoom call if we need them, just for a resource. Now, if you've ever been to the Midwest bus, you actually go behind, it's not the grass pad, what is it? Is it the grass pad? So if you turn right there in front of the grass pad, you're gonna go right to Kubota. You actually have to go east behind it, and there's a back road in. It's kind of different, so don't be surprised. when you get there. But it's a nice setup, and so see you tomorrow there around 11:30. And then once again, just as you know, we had the Tonganoxie alumni group run the side by side last Saturday. Really had a great turnout, and it was a really successful fundraiser for the student scholarships, and so very appreciative of their work. Mitch touched on all that, and I think we touched on everything from me. Unless you guys have questions.
Questions? Ms. Phillips?
All right. Well, as Lauren mentioned, we are almost full with all of our licensed or certified positions. We have just one science position open at the high school, and they had an interview Friday. They have another interview tomorrow. So hopefully between the two candidates, we find one that we'll be happy with. Classified positions, those we like to fill closer to August, just because there's a lot of time between May and August that folks can look for other jobs and have other opportunities. So we start filling those during July, so they can start and be ready to go in August. Frontline update: all of our frontline products are up and fully functional. We had our last full meeting with our recruiting and hiring consultant today, and so we're transitioning to the regular support, the long-term support model. Everything is going well. Frontline Central is doing a system upgrade to make things a little faster moving. Skyward, we're getting ready to go through a migration. Currently, we are in the SMS model, SMS 2.0, and we'll be moving to cumulative. We took a group to the Skyward conference in Wichita in, I believe it was April, to learn about the cumulative process. And we have a group that has been meeting regularly. We met with our consultants last week, and we have a lot of work to do toward that migration process. We have pretty much a full year of work to do that we have to go through our current Skyward and really do some data cleanup, and we'll be migrating to cumulative in next July. So we have a full year to work on things. We're excited about that process. And there's just some more information there for you on the cumulative process.
So that's a new platform from the same company from Skyward?
It is, but it's been around since 2014, and they've continued to mold it and grow it. But they're transitioning all of their SMS 2.0 users to cumulative, and so we had to kind of choose when we were going to do that. So we'll do that in July 26th, and I think by 27, I believe they'll have everyone fully migrated.
And is there a cost to the district to do that?
Just very minimal cost just to make that transition, but it's definitely worth it because you have a lot of support in that process, and there are modules that you have to complete. I know that I'll be busy with pieces. Audra will, Becky will, Forrest will. A lot of us will be working on that throughout this whole year and just getting ready for that migration. I talked about the Tonganoxie Education Association and how we've worked through the process of the handbook. We came up with some wording changes. We worked on a few key pieces from negotiations last year where if you were a part of that, if you remember, they came in with a whole lot of language changes that we just weren't ready to tackle all in one fell swoop. So we've spent some time this year, I have with some of the TEA members, going through that process, looking at other districts, looking at regulations, state statutes, and really trying to firm that up so it's legally sound, but it's really a good product for our district. So we've put all of that together. I've sent a copy of our handbook and all the changes off to KASB, and the attorneys are currently reviewing that. They should have it to us by the end of this month, so we have it in time for our July board meeting.
Have they been happy with their involvement in that? I know that was, kind of a commitment we made during negotiations that they would be involved. Have they been?
Yes, they've been very pleased. I've been very pleased with their participation. We've had several meetings. I've given them kind of a template of what we'd work on each time. So This first section, please study and review, come prepared, and they've all been very prepared, ready to tackle certain areas. We've had Google Docs up where they have a question, so I'll put that in to the notes so you can see exactly what their question was, what was addressed, and all that's been sent off to KASB to review, so that it's legally sound and it's just the way we want it to be. The negotiations process, we've worked on all that language for due process, staff improvement plans, grievances. I've got the draft ready. They're currently reviewing it, and then I've got Lauren a copy too, so he can kind of look through, and then we'll come to a consensus on if we both sides feel that it really meets the needs of the district, then we'll move forward with it. Looking at it, during negotiations. So I've been very pleased with their input. The committee that I've worked with has gone back to the full TEA group and has really talked highly about just the cooperation and working together. It's been very positive.
It's important to honor our commitments, and that's a commitment we made.
Yes, yes. And that has been great. And summer's a very busy time for the district office. I know everyone feels like it's a break, it's summer, everybody's gone and relaxed, but it is a very busy time for the district office and critical. We have numerous end-of-the-year reports that we have to complete and submit to state and federal agencies. We have to ensure that they are accurate and timely. Once those reports are finalized, then we shift our focus to rolling systems over to the next year. And that has to be done with accuracy as well. It's pretty complex. Skyward has its own process. Frontline has its own process. And it really has to be done on time and very accurately. So we work really hard on that. During that transition, there'll be some systems that will be offline for a brief period of time, but then they'll be up and running and ready for the 25-26 school year. All right. We have also tried to do something new for our new staff coming in. It is always really hectic at the very beginning of the school year in August when staff members report for their first day, and we're hitting them with, here's how you get your laptop, here's your key, here's your badge, here's how safety works in our district, and then also here's how things need to go in your classroom. And it is just way too much to try to soak in and learn all of that information, and then school starts. So we've really tried to space things out a little bit for the summer. We're hosting new staff orientation sessions for our certified staff, so our licensed teachers. We're bringing them in for 1 half day during the summer. In fact, we started last week. We've picked 3 different Wednesdays during June. And they can pick whichever Wednesday they want to come. So we've got them scheduled. The new staff come in, they learn about the district's mission and core values, communication systems, technology tools, so they're trained on their laptop, they know how to log in, access email, and all of their textbook programs. We go over safety and security protocols. They get their badge, their key fob, so that they can access all our district systems. They also stop by HR just to make sure we have all of their paperwork and anything else that they need to turn in and get done before they start. That way, when they report for their first day in August, it's all about curriculum, instruction, the classroom. So they can really focus. They have the summer just to kind of get used to how things are going to be with their laptop. They can get into their new classroom with their badge and their key fob. So it's gone very well so far. In fact, the staff members that we had this past Wednesday said, I don't know how we could have done it just starting in August and trying to learn all of this stuff, because it is pretty overwhelming. And we did fill up an entire half day full of just learning how things work. So it's been very positive. We've got 2 more sessions scheduled, and we're looking forward to meeting the rest of the new staff. So that's it. That's all I've got for you.
Lauren and I spoke earlier today about getting some preliminary dates on the calendar for negotiations. Obviously some of that's pending budget finalization and the like, but I know it's going to be challenging to get calendars coordinated, so I'd like to get some times
Yeah.
that are at least tentative times.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
probably need at least one or two board members, depending on whether Chris wants to participate, at least one or two board members participate in negotiations too. So think about if you're willing to do that.
I said
I
last
think
time that I
Steph-
would, yeah. That'd be fine.
Didn't Stephanie?
Yeah,
I thought-
I said
I was
last time.
thinking.
Anybody else want to, if Chris?
I would do that.
Okay. We'll work on it sometime.
All right.
All right, any questions for Tanya? All right, moving into action items. Action item 5.1, approval of additional bills. I would move that we approve action item 5.1 as presented. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. So, Lauren, you can jump in on this a little
Mhm.
bit, but through audits and different things, we have the ability to get another $146,000 into our general fund from state aid. That's what the hearing was about earlier. We do have to approve increasing our spending authority to go do that. But again, it's $146,000 in state aid. Any comments or questions on that for Lauren before we?
It's three different levels. It's general fund, at risk, and sped.
Okay.
So they're all rolled together.
Okay. Any questions? All right, I would move that we adopt and publish the amended general fund for additional spending authority in order to receive full state foundation aid entitlement based on audited enrollment and additional special education state aid flow through. Is there a second?
Second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 5.3, handbook revisions. You want to hit on this one, Lauren, or Tanya?
Tanya.
Those are all student handbook revisions. You'll see there's a quick view for the different changes that are highlighted.
Elementary and middle school have it blocked, so it says access denied. I've sent them requests, but
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
you can see high school, but you cannot see elementary
Okay.
or middle school.
I don't believe I have.
Oops.
Let me see if I have access to unblock. Were you trying to access it with your
So
with your
I
district
could-
email?
I could get to it with my district device. I can't get to it from my personal device.
I can't get to it from district device.
I can't either.
Okay. Is anything major break if we approve this in July?
The only reason we would approve it for June, or we like to approve it in June, is that we open up online enrollment in July. And so if we open online enrollment and we don't have our new handbooks, then we have our old ones in there.
When in July do we open up enrollment?
Typically, it's honestly held back by the federal student application for free and reduced meals. So as soon as that gets approved, typically it's right after the 4th of July. Our board meeting is on the 14th, so that would cut us really, really close.
Why don't, I don't feel comfortable asking people to approve it when they haven't been able
So
to get.
could we, would you guys be comfortable if we get that access updated tonight and then you guys look at it, or?
See, I
and
don't
then-
even have access to it.
Well, and then, I don't either. But then tomorrow, would you guys be able to, if we put it on the agenda? I mean, I keep adding to the
I'm not
agenda.
there tomorrow.
Is that what?
Stephanie's not there tomorrow. Why don't we see if we can get access and put it on the agenda for tomorrow? If everybody has time to do it, then we can do it tomorrow. If we don't, then we'll table it until July.
Okay.
All right, do we need to make a motion to table something, Audra, or? Okay, I would move that we table action item 5.3 for tonight. Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. All right, closing budget authority. So this is basically the board giving authorization to the superintendent and team to close out our budget for the year. It's something that we do every year. Any questions or comments on that for Lauren? Okay. So for action item 5.4, I move to authorize the superintendent, the business manager, and the auditor to make necessary transfers to the special funds including driver's ed, special ed, food service, in-service textbook, capital outlay, and transfer the legal maximum amounts provided by law to the contingency reserve fund, the capital outlay fund, and any special funds from the general fund and supplemental fund, subject to the receipt of the district's final state aid payments. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. All right. Train service agreement. Discussion. Don't everybody start at once. I think from my perspective, I think we're in a financial position right now that is very positive. It's hard to predict where we'll be in years 6 through 10. The $70,000 that was on there for some level of predictability feels reasonable to me for the level of expense of that project, but Train also makes money on service agreements, so we're rolling the dice. But any comments, questions, disagreement?
Given our past experiences, I guess I'm more supportive of it because of that, since we tend to have some issues.
To give you a little reassurance, I think Mitch has looked at this very closely, and he's supporting it. I can tell, and with our conversations, it gives him more predictability. Is the best way to put it, and that's where we've progressed, as we move forward. So I know it costs money to do that, but it helps. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, I would move that we approve action item 5.5, approval of train service agreement as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. Based on our conversation with Mr. Loomis, I would move that we table action item 5.6 to a later date. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand.
You have the fee schedule.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 6-0. You want to hit on fee schedule?
Yes, I'll have Tanya touch on it.
Fee schedule is basically the same. The only change is the adult lunch went from $4.50 to $5. And that is it. All other fees have stayed the same.
And was everybody else able to open that?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? All right, well, I'm gonna keep going because I'm on a roll. I would move that we approve action item 5.7, approval of 2025-2026 fee schedule as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 5.8, approval of contractual agreement with the Guidance Center for 2024-2025 school year.
Should say 25-26.
Yeah, and the contract does say that. Tanya or Lauren, do you want to hit on this one quickly?
So we had a question today from Ryan about this, and so the Guidance Center, there's no cost for this contract. And so we started this about 4 years ago, probably. And what we were given is a person at the high school who meets with students who are under the Guidance Center's, what's the best way to put it?
They work under the Guidance Center. The person is a school-based clinician.
Clinic, yeah.
And they are clients of the Guidance Center. So we don't just randomly send students to this person. They contract through the Guidance Center, so it's there's no violation where we would, HIPAA, FERPA, like they work with the Guidance Center.
And the parents.
And the parents,
Yeah.
yes.
It's been a very, very successful program for THS.
Yes.
So no financial implication, only the contractual terms and conditions that are in here.
Right. For this 24-25 school year, there was a $15,000 possibility of a charge for us because they had not secured adequate funding. We were not charged that amount, but they have secured funding moving forward. So there is no clause in there that says if they run out of money, we'll be charged. It's no charge to us. We just provide the space and they just operate. And our school-based clinician works with us with the student services team. So they're just really, they feel like a part of our team, but they work under the direction of the guidance center.
Comments, questions? All right, I would move that we approve a contractual agreement between the district and the guidance center for the 2025-2026 school year. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Action item 5.9, approval of projector purchase. Forrest, do you want to?
I was submitting to replace all the projectors at our middle school this summer. There's 41 of them. Projectors we have in there, this would be a huge upgrade. They're approaching 10 years old. The new projectors are all laser projectors like our high school. There's some real benefits to that. You know, we don't have to worry about bulbs going out in the middle of the day for the teachers. The units are rated for, I think it's 20,000 hours, so they'll last like probably between 8 to 10 years, and then you just replace the whole unit at that time. And the best bid I had was from Howard. It was around I think $866 per projector, which is actually for that model is a really good price.
Comments or questions?
Are you experiencing a lot of problems with the ones that are there now?
A lot of bulbs going out. Luckily, we had a lot of extra old projectors from the elementary school when we replaced those. So, I mean, in the last year, we've replaced a good, probably 5 or 6 at least. I just would like to be ahead of it and make sure we don't run into having, you know, a lot of failures, get them replaced before we start having widespread problems with them.
Other questions, comments?
And I did budget for it for this year. So.
Any other comments, questions? All right, I would move that we approve action item 5.9, approval of projector purchase in an amount not to exceed $35,506. Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 6.1 is more of an FYI. We have some KSB June policy updates. Please review those. Those will be on the July agenda for approval. We don't have a need for executive session tonight. I think Lauren already mentioned it, but we have our special board meeting / retreat tomorrow. Warner would like us there by 11:30. Any other announcements or?
But the only other thing I'd say is it looks like we might have 3 items on the agenda, which kind of built on us in the last day here. So we'll get that ready for tomorrow.
Okay. All right, if there's no other announcements, we will adjourn.
Thank you.